Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond in Germany. We're going to jump into what's going on in the crypto world, maybe even touch on a little politics today, and talk about some upcoming mints in our own project. So, Alex, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Hey man, I'm great. I hope you're good too. Let's obviously speak a little bit about the topic of the day that has been all around X. Joe Biden is stepping down as a candidate as presidential to become president, and it has been like you could expect that with all the news you've gotten lately, but it feels like, especially after he made some tweets a couple hours ago, still telling people that he's going to win the election and that this is going to be the most important election ever. It kind of came a little surprising for me that it was like that fast overnight. Actually, for me, just read it this morning, and yeah, there are a few people who are going to take his place, but it's not decided yet, as far as I know. We got like Michelle Obama, we got Kamala Harris, and we got a couple of guys I've never heard of. But yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it did happen pretty quickly. It was not really surprising, to be honest with you. I think most people who were paying attention saw this coming, or at least expected it. I know Vivek Ramaswamy, who was one of the candidates at one point before he dropped out on the Republican side, basically predicted it before the original presidential debate. He predicted that this would happen. So it's been on people's radar for some time. And, to be honest, it's the best thing. He's not been fit for office since he took office, to be quite honest. And he is basically, it's obvious that he's been run by a group of handlers. And those people who've been handling him have been making all the decisions. So having a guy at the head of state who cannot think for himself or make decisions on his own is really not a good thing. And it points to a fact that, a lot of people in the U.S. were really concerned or curious about who was actually running the country, who was running the day-to-day affairs in government, because it was pretty obvious that it wasn't Biden.
Yeah, definitely. And I was even a little bit surprised because markets, for example, didn't react at all, because you mentioned it. It was actually expectable, but it's still crazy because markets usually tend to react to every little thing that is happening. But we could definitely see that everyone was expecting Biden to step down. And do you feel like it's like a free win for Trump now, or do you think there's still a chance that Democrats come up with someone who's actually having a real chance?
I don't know. I think I heard one perspective this morning that basically said, hey, the longer they wait, the better. Because the reasoning was that if they stick someone in there at the last minute, that whoever they put in at the last minute, the rest of the country won't have time to really vet them, and they won't have time to dig into their history. They won't have time to really, pull up their voting record and go through the past history that they've, had in either the world of either the civilian world or the political world, depending on where they come from. And so I don't really place a lot of stock in any of it, to be honest with you. I don't think it's, I don't necessarily believe that opinion, that it's the good thing for the Democrats, because I think with as much social media and access to information as there is today, if someone really wants to dig into your past, they can. So, who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, it'll be what it is. And I just feel like most people have to separate themselves from what's going on in the world of politics and realize that, when it comes to your everyday life, no one's coming to save you. So stop worrying about what's happening outside you and things that you can't control, and start focusing on the things that matter. The people closest to you, your relationships, the businesses that you're building, the organizations that you want to create, and go for those things. And, I saw a pretty interesting tweet this morning that basically said something to the effect of, no matter who's in office, winners will win and losers will lose. And there's a certain amount of truth to that, because if you think about, what's happening externally to you and you allow yourself to be a victim, you allow that to beat you down, then you won't move in a way that's autonomous and free you won't move in a way that you act on your own impetus and your own locus of control, then you become a victim. So, I mean, I feel like, most people who are paying attention to what's happening in the world, and as crazy as the political world and the world of money has been, if you really want to have any form of success and you're paying attention, then it should be pretty evident to you by now that you've got to basically take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and, take charge of your life and what's happening in it. So that's kind of how I look at that whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. So if I understand you right correctly, you don't even care like how the vote is actually what's going to happen, right?
Well, I mean, I care, but at the same time, I'm not going to, waste a lot of time on it because I cannot control what happens. I'm not going to have basically any impact on the outcome personally. And the person that I would vote for isn't even running. So, I think in the last podcast, I kept saying JFK, which obviously is not correct. JFK was assassinated. I meant to say RFK Jr. If RFK Jr. was in the fight, I would vote for him. He would be my guy. But he's not running, or at least hasn't been asked to run as a Democrat, and as an independent, he doesn't really stand a chance. So that's where I'm coming from. So I care from the standpoint of, I feel like the Democrats have taken the country in a very, very negative direction, which is why I think you see, Elon posting a photo of himself in front of an American flag with laser eyes, right? Like, people paying attention, especially in the business world, people see what's going on with human incentive. People see what's going on with these ridiculous policies coming out of leftist hotbeds like New York and California, for example. And, Elon recently posted that he was moving X to Texas. He's moving it to Austin, Texas. And he's moving SpaceX to Starbase, Texas. So, I mean, he's leaving the state of California, which traditionally has been one of the greatest industrial leaders of the world. But because of leftist politics, social unrest, people are leaving that state. They don't want to be a part of it. And in one of his posts, I think he literally said, something to the effect of he was tired of dodging vagrants and homeless to get to the front door of his office. It's that bad. And so when you look at the policies that these people have basically instituted and their effects, I mean, it's very difficult as a thinking person to vote for a Democrat. I mean, it just really is, to be honest with you.
So does that mean you do not vote at all this time?
Definitely not excited to vote. I'm not a big voter anyway. There's a certain theory around, people saying, well, if you don't vote, you're wasting your right, or if you don't vote, you can't complain, or if you don't vote, blah, blah, blah. They have all these things about, voting. But the truth is, like, if you participate in something that's a farce, then you're just only perpetuating the farce. So, if you believe that, the candidates that are presented to you are either the lesser of two evils or, basically no one that you would support in real life, then, the truth is you shouldn't participate, So for me now, it's basically like, okay, who do I feel is less bad, right? So if I had to vote, I'd vote with Elon and I would vote for Trump. I think he's less bad for the country, right? But if RFK was on the ballot, I would vote for RFK because I think he has good policies financially, good policies socially, and he's a good communicator of those values and ideas, right? So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I don't feel like if I vote or not, it makes a huge difference. By all means, for people out there in the world who are listening to this and you feel like your vote matters, go vote. But at the end of the day, if you're being presented with something that is farcical in a way, like it's fantastic in a way, and you participate in that, then you're guilty of perpetuating it. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I don't feel like anyone should vote that doesn't either really understand the issues on a deep level and has done their research and really understands the implications of, human incentive and what political policies actually do. You should not vote if you don't understand those things. You should not vote if you've never experienced anything in the world. You should not vote if you've never been in the world, if you've never been an employee, or if you've never built a business. You should not vote. And people get all upset when you say things like this, but the truth is, if you don't have a stake in what's being created, then you shouldn't have a say in what's being created, right? And this is why back in the day, women didn't vote, and men who didn't own land couldn't vote, like way back in the day. And the reasoning behind that was, if you held land, or you had a business interest, or you had a vested interest in what was happening on your land, then you would actually take the time to research and educate yourself about what this particular individual that you would vote for or support, would be doing. And in a situation where you don't have a stake, where so many young people today don't have a stake in anything, they don't understand the issues, they've been conditioned to think a certain way in university or college, and they come out basically warped with one side of the story. And then of course they want to go to the polls and cast a vote. And then their vote is going to have an impact on the people who are actually in the world building businesses, working, earning money, trying to support families. That's not that's not a smart way to do it. So anyone who has a vote, they should really honor it, and they should really consider the fact that if you don't understand the issues or the people, or if you don't understand human incentives and what you're creating, then you should really abstain from participating in the conversation until you do. And it's like one of the founding fathers basically said, democracy only works with an educated populace. And we have one of the most miseducated populaces that I can remember in the entirety of my adult life. So long as that is the case, as long as people are miseducated and misinformed, I think people should really think twice about who they vote for, if they vote at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, especially, I'm not sure what age you need to be in the United States to vote, but here in Germany, they actually lowered the age, and they gave 16 years old to the ability to vote. And if I remember myself being 16 years old, thinking about politics, I had no idea. The only thing in my mind was basically, I don't know, girls and stuff like that. And they always say things like, you'd have to grant them a voice, give youth a chance to decide who's having power in your country. But whenever you say to someone like, no, I do not vote, I'm not going there, there's always someone saying stuff like, if everyone thinks like you and doesn't go to doesn't vote, you're basically giving power to the bad ones,
Mm-hmm.
and that's absolutely bullshit. I feel like if you actually gave educated people a voice, and people who actually, as you said, should have the ability to vote, and who are actually well educated in politics, um, these people should be able to do it. But it's probably a matter of your regulations, like who would you grant that ability? Like that would probably be a pretty big discussion. But it's interesting when I saw, when you just posted the image of Elon with the laser eyes, guest user actually said like Elon for president question mark. Would you vote for Elon if he ran for president?
I don't know if I would or wouldn't. I think he could certainly do a good job in the position, but I've never really heard him talk about anything political other than just ensuring that people had freedom of speech. He's talked a little bit about business and enterprise, and how regulation really harms the creation of business and harms his ability to produce. So aside from those two things, I really don't know where he stands on much of anything. I know previously he, voted Democrat. I think he even voted for Joe Biden initially. So I think this is one of those things where whether or not you vote for Trump or Biden or whomever, the real thing that you're voting for is what that person stands for and what they believe. And what I see right now is a lot of sort of tribalism. And if, you're not a part of my tribe, I'm not going to vote for you, even if your ideas are good. And I think that's a really bad thing. RFK is not a Republican. My family traditionally has voted Republican. I have typically voted Republican when I have voted, or I've written in libertarians like Ron Paul. But at the end of the day, I would vote for RFK over all of the other candidates just because his ideas and philosophies are good. And I think I'm in the minority when I say that I'm one of the few people who would do that. Most people are just going to vote whoever their parents told them to vote for when they were growing up, and that's pretty much it. I'm voting Democrat or I'm voting Republican. And I don't care about Democrat and Republican. What I care about is the incentives created by the policies. And so when I look at that, there's no doubt that socialism has crept into the world in a big way. The Democrat Party has embraced it wholeheartedly. They've embraced Marxism through identity politics. And these things are proven with hundreds of years of history and hundreds of millions of deaths not to work. And we don't need to go that route again. It doesn't work. It's failed time and time again because it ignores human incentive. And, when I look around and I see, like, for example, here in Phoenix, up to the Obama years, which I can't even remember, what was he, 2012, I think? Up until the time of Obama, Phoenix was a relatively, clean, very, very sort of reserved, very cool, laid-back city. And now if I drive down into the city, like in the heart of the city, I'll see vagrants on every street corner, homeless on every street corner. And this didn't happen before. So we've gotten a lot of ex-plant homeless from California moved to Phoenix, and they'll literally just live under bridges and sit on street corners all day and beg. And it's not like these people are incapable of working or incapable of taking care of themselves. They've just chosen that lifestyle. And there's a huge difference. And I mean, the people who have genuinely become homeless due to no fault of their own or for some mental illness reasons or for some financial reasons, these are the people who need to be helped. But when you see, 20-year-olds on the street corner, perfectly healthy, perfectly sane, and, in the prime of their life, just begging for money because they can, something is broken. The incentive structure is broken. And maybe it's because they feel like they can't get ahead. Maybe it's because inflation is so bad that they feel like if they work a job that they're just throwing their lives away. They can't earn enough money. They don't know how to build a business. These things are all skills that people can learn. But if we take away the incentives for them to learn them and we allow people to sit and wallow in a situation that's less than they're capable of, then we're stealing the most precious thing from them that we could possibly steal, and that's their motivation. And I feel like the left has done a great job of stealing people's motivation. And I think this is, ironically, I was listening to a podcast this morning with Greg Lukianov, who co-wrote the book, The Coddling of the American Mind with Jonathan Haidt, and they were talking about this particular topic, right? Like, why is suicide rates so high in Ivy League universities, like the upper echelon universities? Why is suicide rates so high? Like, these are the best and brightest, right? Well, it's because his theory was, because we've taken a group of kids who've been told their entire lives that they're the smartest people and that they have the best opportunities, and then we put them in college or university, and then we tell them that the system's rigged against them and that they can't do anything about it and that they're powerless and that they should be victims. And they can't reconcile the two, so they start to develop a sense of hopelessness, which leads to despair and depression and ultimately suicide. Right? So we're stealing the motivation. That's basically what he said. We stole their motivation for them to get out into the world and do good things. And, when you have a group of people whose philosophy does that, you can't support it. It doesn't matter how bad it gets, in terms of this person versus that person. You cannot support the ideology that underpins stealing someone's motivation.
So, it seems like, I totally agree on what you said. And what I wanted to add to Elon is I think that if he ever ran as as a president, I also think that he wouldn't get votes for. I think he would get a lot of votes, but I feel like he wouldn't get them for what he stands for, but rather for, like the hype around the person.
Hmm.
Like I think a lot of people like that guy, but for the wrong things. Like for going on a press conference saying "go fuck yourself," and the story with PayPal when he had no. I think he had no money and he had to borrow like money for his rent and everything, and that's why he got so hyped up because he's so successful today. But that doesn't say anything about his like political stand, like his political point of view and what he would do as a president. So, um, but what you just said was interesting because you said that your family used to vote for Republicans, and is it actually a thing in America that generations over generations vote for the same party?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people learn what they live. I mean, to think that people have, sort of graduated into free choice without doing the work is a fallacy. Everyone walking around the planet right now is the sum total of programming that they've received from early childhood on. So, if you were taught early on that you were supposed to look a certain way, dress a certain way, vote a certain way, be a certain way, then that's who you become. And until, an individual realizes that they're not really themselves, that they're the sum total of the people that raised them or reared them or brought them up, then and then they choose to do the work of self-development and learn how to escape that to some degree, then people just fall into those patterns. So you'll see that. You'll see, people voting the way that their parents voted or thinking the way their parents thought, unless, again, they've done the work. And it's a lot of work to escape that. So yeah, it's absolutely true.
Okay, man, that's understandable actually, because a lot of stuff in the world works like that, especially if you look at religion and stuff like that. But yeah, it's actually sad that people do not like are not willing to work and like trying to get their own opinion right.
Indeed, man. Indeed. That is so true.
Um, but let's jump over to the crypto markets because a lot has happened there as well. I think we had a local bottom of Bitcoin at, I think it was 53, if I'm right. And yeah, we've seen a pretty big increase there to, where is it now? I think somewhere around 67K. And it's crazy because for those of you guys who are familiar with the Fear and Greed Index, which is basically an index that shows like the investor sentiment, it actually went from extreme fear to extreme greed within 7 days, which is crazy. I think it went back to neutral today. But yeah, I mean, just think about what happens if Bitcoin goes like to 80 or 90. I think people will go crazy and we'll see an insane rally. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, it's feeding frenzy, right? We've talked about this before. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's the case because it's going to drive, many more people who weren't paying attention uh, into the market, or at least via ETFs or whatever, exchange traded funds, exchange traded assets, whatever that looks like for them. So from the traditional world, for Bitcoin to get more publicity is a great thing. And for people who've been holding for a long time and building portfolios, I mean, obviously that's a great thing. And, honestly, it's a great form of protection against what's happening both politically and with inflation of the dollar. So I hope that you're right, man. And I think that the trend continues based on the charts. If the charts and trends continue, then I think that's spot on.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually a pretty big week for crypto because we have the conference on Sunday. I think it should be. Let me just check the Bitcoin conference on Sunday. Yeah, where Trump is going to speak, and we all know we got the Vice President JD Vance, or maybe going to be Vice President, who's also a big crypto fan. And there are even rumors out there claiming that Elon Musk might show up at the conference, or Michael Dell. And yeah, I'm pretty hyped for that. I'm definitely trying to see that. Not sure if there will be some kind of stream online to check that, but Yeah, I think if Bitcoin is going, if Trump is going, I mean, he has been talking about Bitcoin on press conferences lately, and showing that he has been is a big supporter. Um, do you think that is going to have a big influence in the short term?
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Not sure, because we all know that the Trump side especially is a big supporter of crypto. But I mean, imagine if Democrats are winning the election. I feel like it might have an impact on the short term, but I feel like on the long run, and I hope that people who believe in the cycles will be right, and that no matter how the election is, yeah, what the result is going to be, that next year is going to be the big year of crypto, right?
Yeah, ideally, for sure. I mean, it should start generally in the fall, winter. I think December, November, December is generally where it goes crazy. Um, if I remember correctly from looking at the time frames, and again, all of this stuff, can be different cycle to cycle, especially as Bitcoin reaches its basically its max supply, which we're down to 3.125 tokens per block. So we're only one halving away from just over 1.5 Bitcoin per block reward. So I mean, Bitcoin's approaching its max supply. And ultimately, when we get there, there's no more of it. And so do these cycles start to extend out because of that? Because the inflation of the token is less and less. That's really the question, right? Um, when it was 100 a block or 50 a block, or whatever it came down to over the years, the supply could really be inflated or deflated quickly depending on those numbers. But then of course adoption then was very, very slow, and not very many people knew about it. So now we've got smaller block rewards spread across more people. And as that continues to play out, then more people have to act in unison to move the market big one way or another. And so I really think the only wave of moving Bitcoin in the future is going to be up as people see it become more of a reserve asset, more of a sort of a safety valve against inflation. With the supply per block getting smaller and smaller and smaller, approaching zero, we're not really going to get massive supply shocks anymore. So we're not really going to see, these massive drops in revenue for miners. We've got maybe 2 cycles where that could potentially happen. But again, that's going to depend on the overall value of Bitcoin. So honestly, I just see more and more people bringing the asset into their portfolio for whatever reason, whether it's protection or whether they believe the story. And I see that curve kind of smoothing out over time, or at least lengthening. And so when that happens, of course, when you get an asset that's more pristine capital, you get less volatility. That's just normal. So I think that's going to be the general trend. But then, of course, the major alts I feel like can still move in big, big ways until that happens. So, I mean, it's anybody's guess because no one can predict the future. But I think the cycles will still hold, just maybe not to the massive, ups and downs that we've seen before.
Yeah, definitely. And in addition to that, tomorrow 5 Ethereum ETFs are set to launch. I think, let me see, I got the list here: Van Eck, Invesco, Fidelity, 21 Shares, and Franklin Templeton. And yeah, I'm curious to see how much liquidity is actually flowing into these. Definitely going to follow the charts. And yeah, right after that, I feel like there are already confirmed applications for Solana ETFs, and I'm actually pretty interested to, or excited to see if there will be other currencies actually applying for ETFs. Will we have Cardano ETFs later, or do you think it's going to be limited, like, to the big four?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like the further we get into this, and the more adoption that we have, the more people are going to consolidate around what they feel their winners are. And that's going to mean less and less room for meme coins and, smaller tokens that really aren't really doing anything different, I guess you would say. Cardano is one of those tokens that basically had a massive run up in the last cycle. I think it was pretty big, along with Polkadot had a massive run up, I think all the way into the 40s, maybe close to the 50s. I can't remember, but it was a massive run up. And then they dropped to basically nothing in the last cycle, and they haven't even come close to recovering any of those numbers. So, I think this is just evidence that people are going to gravitate toward the chains that are a first mover, so you got your Bitcoins, your ETHs, your Solanas, and B, have a specific use, right? So a specific use case for Bitcoin is, reserve asset, Ethereum, world computer. Solana is becoming basically the go-to asset for applications. Looks like a cell phone's coming down the pike, et cetera, so on and so forth. So unless Cardano or Polkadot or some of these other, smaller tokens can really pull off a technical miracle, or at least create some sort of desire for their product in terms of creating a thing that people want to use or want to hold, I don't really see them doing much, to be honest with you. And I feel like the more that happens is a good thing, because it shakes all the trash out of the market and all the non-believers fall away, and we end up with what we've got. We end up with the winners winning, and people can focus all of their energies on developing those technologies and using those particular those particular applications and value propositions in their own, way, whether it's wealth preservation or, some sort of business use case. And then we go from there. But right now it's like, who can throw up something new? I think that whole story about who can throw up something new or do blockchain in a different way is just going to ultimately collapse. I think it's already collapsing. And I think the token prices of things like, Polkadot, Cardano, I think these are just proof positive that's already taking place. And it's gonna, when it really starts to roll, it'll happen really fast, and all of those people will get washed out. I think pretty much all those technologies go to zero, or they get swallowed up or subsumed by other technologies who do the same thing better, or who do a better job of communicating that they do the same thing better. So, that's kind of my take on it, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully, meme coins are the first casualty of that event, and then the lesser altcoins it'd be nice to see them go away, because I think they provide false hope to people, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So let's see what happens with the ETFs. But let's move on to the GoodFellas, because we also have a pretty big mint coming up with the next drop from Daria, the next artist Incubator Drop. And people who have been watching our timeline on X or following on Discord have seen that we created mint passes for people, which are created as C NFTs. Want to lose some words?
Yeah, for sure. The C NFTs are basically compressed NFTs, and they've been kind of fun to work with, and fun in like air quotes way. It's been a little bit of a learning curve, and trying to get them to work properly has been a bit of a challenge. But we definitely want to get the CNFTs or these Mint Pass NFTs out to people who want to mint, who are not necessarily holding bosses or whatever. And this will allow the artists and their people to mint right alongside the bosses and inside the GoodFellas community. Because as everyone who's been paying attention knows, like the bosses get first priority. So it's our attempt to allow the artists themselves to bring on their best collectors or their greatest followers and be able to mint certain things that wouldn't be available to them otherwise. And when these NFTs go out or these CNFTs go out, if you're receiving one, just make sure that you check in the hidden portion of your wallet, because a lot of times CNFTs are marked as spam because they're obviously used, widely used to make sure that people can distribute large quantities of NFTs inexpensively. So if you don't see one in your wallet and you've submitted your wallet, just make sure that you unhide it, because then it'll be visible, especially in Phantom. I'm not exactly sure how it works in the other wallets like Soulflare or what have you, but they'll probably have something similar just if you're using Phantom, make sure that you go to your hidden section and unhide the NFT so you can see it. But as long as it's in your wallet, you should be able to mint no problems. And I'm going to be running tests on that this week, getting ready for a mint on Friday. So should have all that sewn up pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk a little bit about the piece that we are going to drop. Is it one of your? It's actually just a 4-piece series, but is it like one of your favorite ones?
This series is really cool to me because it has very realistic forms, and I like the concepts behind it, the ideas that Daria put forth in terms of trying to capture like the word of power, the word of freedom, and using a figure to portray that. I think it's a really interesting concept. And of course, if you've got the first piece, you've seen the way that it rolls, you see kind of how it looks. And, the pieces carry that theme throughout in different colorations and different formats and representing different ideas. And so for me, like that realistic sort of artist interpretation of the female form, it's one of the things that I really enjoy. It's one of the things I really like. So it's definitely at the top of my list in terms of artwork that I've seen that I've gravitated towards.
Yeah, and you mentioned it already. The next piece is actually called Control, and to give a little alpha to people, when I had the conversation with Daria and she created all these pieces, I actually asked her to give like a little, like just a little sentence to describe the piece that is like each piece that is coming out. And her sentence for the next piece, for the control piece, is actually let me see if I find it. I got it. In your quest to control others, don't become imprisoned by the very controls you set. And yeah, I gotta say, I think it's actually my favorite one. Yeah, if I think about it, it's actually my favorite one. I mean, I love the other pieces as well, but this one is very special, and I feel like it definitely, yeah, it definitely shows why it's called Control, and that's why I love it so much. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. She does a good job of that. I think she puts a lot of energy and effort into really, like, I don't want to say perfecting, but it's almost perfecting, like perfecting the idea to the best of her ability. And she'll be the first one to tell you that she's, learning as she goes, like we all are in this marketplace and in the world as we go through and create what we want to create. But I think she does a good job of perfecting the ideas, and that's probably the wrong word, but maybe exploring the ideas. And the imagery really does a good job of portraying that as well. So I can appreciate what she's doing, probably on a very deep level, mainly because she has demonstrated a depth of philosophy in her work that I don't see in a lot of artistic work. I see a lot of, random things thrown together and a lot of things that don't really make sense thrown together and called art. But I think when you really get to its essence, art is not subjective, it's objective. And there's a reason that things are beautiful. And stripping away what's unnecessary to get to what is necessary for making a piece beautiful, I think she does a good job of that. And that's one of the reasons that I feel like she has, really explored the idea of the words that she's put forth, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And for those of you guys who are interested in what else she does, definitely go check out her X. I think she did some great work recently, and she shows a lot of her art that she creates. She shows the progress of creating it, and I think she does a lot of stuff for other projects as well. But as I said, I think it's great, and the she's very unique in what she does, comparable to what Maria does. I think I mentioned it quite often that whenever Maria does something, you can immediately see that it's from her. And I love that about an artist, like not copying others, but having your own unique style, right?
Yeah, definitely. In this particular case, like the series that she did is really cohesive and very much, you can tell that it belongs to the same series. But when you look at her body of work, you can see that she has explored a lot of different styles, and I think ultimately that's because, she's sort of new to that art game and she's figuring it out, and ultimately she'll probably land on something that's really her. But it's really cool to see an artist not be pigeonholed by that, and it just as in the same way it's cool to see some work and know that, oh, that's that particular artist because you recognize the style. It's just as cool to see an artist go from style to style to style and still demonstrate a high level of proficiency. And I think that's one of the things I've noticed about her work and one of the things I can really appreciate.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, the mint is going to take place on Friday. We are trying to be live, or not, we are trying to be, we're going to be live on Spaces when the mint is happening. So we are hoping to see some live reactions. And yeah, looking forward to that. I think the community is going to love it. I hope that we can get some people from Daria in as well. And yeah, you will see probably once you hear the podcast episode, you'll see all that we've been posting a lot about the Artist Incubator Drop lately, and we're going to promote it hard this week. So looking forward to that. And yeah, maybe to give a little outlook. I mean, we have mentioned it before as well, but there is also a little batch mint coming up. I know you've been doing a lot of work for that. Give us a little update on the progress.
Yeah, we've this is actually going to be probably one of the mints I'm most excited for because we've got some new background art coming into the fray from one of our community members. Her name is Yvette, and she's really put forth some really cool stuff that is more in line with her abstract form. She does a lot of abstract background work, and if you're familiar with our collection, most of the backgrounds are more or less solid backgrounds, like brightly colored solid backgrounds. And what I asked Yvette to do was put together some multicolored, abstract looking backgrounds in her style that incorporated the primary coloration of our collection. And I think she's done a good job of doing that. So over the weekend, or actually toward the end of last week, I started putting some pieces together and sent them off to her. I think you're in that conversation as well. So you kind of saw how the figures would look against those backgrounds and we could play with them. So we're going to have, at least 10% of the collection, maybe more, with the newer backgrounds. And then, of course, new hand traits coming down the pike, and, obviously a new one of one. So there's so much subject matter to pick from with the whole political situation going on, and, with it being summertime, and with the richness of the backgrounds, and with the inspiration for a new hand trait from guest user that I've mentioned previously. There should be some really interesting variants inside the collection that we've not seen before, and I'm stoked to have that because it always feels new when we're able to do that, and I really, really appreciate the fact that we have a collection that we can sort of evolve as it goes and as it grows.
Yeah, man, and I think I mentioned it last time as well, but I could not have imagined what a difference just like a background would make. Like it feels like a whole different collection now, because before that we used to have like very clear backgrounds. Usually one color. We had that farts background, which was a little different, and the golden one obviously with some structure in the background. And I always love these pieces, and having these new backgrounds. And for those of you guys who want to check out Yvette and what she does, you guys can get an idea of how it's going to look. But um, like together with the GoodFellas pieces, it's insane, and I'm so sure that people are going to love it. I'll probably mint myself a lot of these pieces, because that's definitely going to be a very unique and special batch. And yeah, couldn't be more excited, man.
Yeah, I'm going to be minting hard, man. Like the first couple of mints, I kind of sat back and I let other people mint because I knew that they would be most excited up front. But yeah, I've got like 10 bosses that I need to build families for. So I'm going to be minting hard as hell, and hopefully I can pick up a lot of those background pieces. I'm stoked to get those inside my collection as well. They look so different from what we're used to seeing, and they're just so colorful. I've got to do it, man.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. And I mean, if I manage to get one of these new backgrounds together with a new hand trade, that would make me like the happiest person on earth. Actually, would probably be a pretty good belated birthday gift for me. And yeah, I'd love that.
Oh, yeah. Well, when was your birthday? I didn't even know you had a birthday.
Actually, in April.
Oh, very belated. Yeah. Okay. I thought you meant like just recently when
It's
you were.
actually it's actually funny. It's actually funny because I followed X, and I think that your wife is actually. I'm not sure if we have the same birthday. I don't know if I can reveal it here, but you made a post about that. But I think it might be the same day.
April 13th.
Oh, it's 14. Okay, so it's pretty close. I wasn't sure because of the different time zones, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's almost the same. Yeah.
Yes.
One day apart. Wow. Amazing.
Yeah, man. From now you need to buy two gifts like in early April.
I know. I can't forget, man. There's no way I can forget anymore. Oh, dude, that's awesome. Oh,
Okay,
yeah. Very cool.
perfect, man. So, yeah, looking forward to the artist incubator drop. Looking forward to the batch, and I think we're good for now. I'm very excited to see like what's happening this week, especially with the conference and the ETH-ETF launch. We'll know what happened next time when we record a podcast. And yeah, it's a crazy important week for everyone in the space, for us as well, with the artist incubator drop. And yeah, couldn't be more excited, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah, man. Same here. Cool deal. Well, if that's it, if there's no more topics to jump into, we'll call it here, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.